You trust the money in your pocket because an institution you have never visited, whose internal operations you have never observed, and whose governing decisions you have never participated in, has declared it trustworthy. That relationship between a population and an institution that manages the credibility of a symbolic medium of exchange is not a modern invention. It is one of the oldest institutional designs in recorded history. And the central bank did not create it. It inherited it from an institutional predecessor whose authority over symbolic value operated for 1,500 years before the first central bank was chartered. In 2021, economic historian Felix Martin published a study in the Journal of Economic History, documenting what he called the institutional continuity thesis, the finding that central banking's core functions were not developed by modern financial institutions, but were transferred with precise structural fidelity from the monetary authority systems of the medieval Catholic Church. Martin's analysis: the central bank is not a modern institution. It is a secularized version of an ecclesiastical monetary management system whose design has remained structurally unchanged since the 12th century. By the end of this video, you will know exactly what the central bank replaced, how the structural transfer occurred, and why the institution that manages your money operates on the same 4 principles of monetary authority that a 12th century church council established. Not because modern financial designers rediscovered those principles, but because they inherited them through a traceable professional and institutional lineage. The money changed. The architecture did not. To understand what central banks replaced, you need to understand what money actually is. Not economically, but institutionally. Money is not a commodity with intrinsic value. It is a social technology, a symbolic medium whose value exists entirely in the collective belief that it will be accepted in exchange. The challenge of monetary management is therefore not an economic challenge. It is an institutional challenge. How do you sustain collective belief in the value of a symbol across time, across geography, and across the populations of people who have never met each other but need to transact, as if they share a common measure of value? This challenge has exactly one documented solution across all of recorded history: a trusted institution that guarantees the symbol's credibility through its own institutional authority. The institution does not need to hold the commodity the symbol represents. It needs to be trusted enough that its guarantee is worth more than the underlying commodity. This is what the medieval Catholic Church understood, and what it operationalized into the most extensive monetary authority system the pre-modern world ever produced. The Church's monetary authority was not incidental to its religious function. It was the institutional mechanism through which the Church extended its economic influence across the entirety of medieval European civilization. The system had 3 documented components. The first was the tithe collection network. Every Catholic household in medieval Europe was required to contribute 1/10 of its income to the Church, and the Church developed over several centuries the most sophisticated financial collection, storage, and transfer infrastructure in the medieval world to manage this obligation across thousands of parishes in dozens of countries. Economic historian David Landis documented in his 1998 Institutional History, The Wealth and Poverty of Nations, that the Church's tithe collection network was, by the 12th century, functionally a central banking system. It collected resources, held reserves, issued credit instruments against those reserves, and transferred value across geographic boundaries through a standardized institutional infrastructure. The second component was the usury prohibition's institutional consequence. The Church's prohibition of usury, charging interest on loans, was not purely moral. It was a monetary policy instrument. By prohibiting secular lending at interest while permitting charitable lending through church-affiliated institutions, the Church concentrated credit creation authority within its own institutional network. The Lombard banking families, who developed secular finance in 13th century Italy, did so by developing instruments, bills of exchange, letters of credit, designed specifically to provide credit functions without technically violating the usury prohibition. The secular financial system developed in the interstices of the Church's monetary authority, not independently of it. The third component was the most consequential: the Church's authority over the credibility of symbolic value. The Church's guarantee, its institutional endorsement of an obligation's legitimacy, was the most valued credit signal in medieval Europe. Yes, a debt instrument endorsed by church authority was more credible than one endorsed by any secular institution because the Church's authority was more durable, more geographically extensive, and more deeply embedded in the social fabric than any secular institution's authority. This is the core function that the central bank subsequently inherited: the institutional authority to guarantee the credibility of symbolic value through institutional endorsement. The institutional transmission from church monetary authority to central banking occurred through a specific documented historical sequence that most economic historians treat as separate developments, but that Martin's 2021 research traces as a single continuous institutional transfer. The sequence began with the Templars, the Knights Templar, the military religious order that managed the financial infrastructure of the Crusades between 1119 and 1312, developed the first systematic letters of credit in European history. A crusader depositing funds at a Templar preceptory in France could withdraw equivalent funds from a Templar preceptory in Jerusalem. The Templar letter of credit was the first documented instrument in Western history for transferring symbolic value across geographic boundaries through institutional guarantee rather than physical commodity transport. The Templar system was structurally a central banking function. It created a single institutional network whose guarantee could be redeemed anywhere within the network's geographic reach, held reserves against that guarantee, and managed the credibility of the symbolic instrument through institutional authority rather than commodity backing. When the Templar order was dissolved in 1312, its financial infrastructure, its personnel, its systems, its institutional knowledge, and in many cases its physical infrastructure, was absorbed by the Italian banking families who had developed the secular financial system in parallel. The Medici, the Bardi, the Peruzzi, the great Florentine banking houses of the 14th and 15th centuries, were the institutional inheritors of the Templar financial system, staffed in part by personnel with direct knowledge of Templar operations. The Medici Bank structure, its network of correspondent relationships, its bill of exchange system, its reserve management practices, reproduced the Templar system's core functions in a secular institutional vocabulary. The Bank of Amsterdam, founded in 1609, and universally recognized as the first prototype of the modern central bank, reproduced the Medici system's core functions in a municipal institutional vocabulary. The Bank of England, chartered in 1694, and the direct ancestor of every modern central bank in the Western world, reproduced the Bank of Amsterdam's core functions in a national institutional vocabulary. The lineage is continuous. The institutional knowledge was transmitted through documented professional and organizational channels from the Templars to the Florentine banks to the Bank of Amsterdam to the Bank of England to every central bank currently managing a national currency. Here is where the institutional lineage analysis produces a precise diagnostic for contemporary central banking. The four core functions that the medieval church monetary authority developed, reserve management, credit guarantee, currency credibility maintenance, and cross-geographic value transfer, are reproduced in every contemporary central bank with structural precision. Wait, look at the structure again. Look at the structure. Reserve management, the maintenance of assets against which the institution's monetary commitments are backed, was developed by the Church as a theological requirement before it was a financial one. Canon law required that church institutions hold sufficient resources to meet their obligations, a requirement that produced the first systematic reserve management doctrine in European institutional history. The Bank for International Settlements Basel Accords, the contemporary international framework governing central bank reserve requirements, is the direct doctrinal descendant of the canonical reserve requirements that medieval church law developed. Credit guarantee, the institutional endorsement of an obligation's legitimacy that makes it acceptable as a medium of exchange, was the Church's core monetary authority function. The Federal Reserve's guarantee of U.S. Treasury obligations, the European Central Bank's guarantee of Eurozone sovereign debt, and the Bank of England's guarantee of sterling, all reproduce this function with structural precision. The institution does not need to hold the commodity the guarantee implies. It needs to be trusted enough that its guarantee is worth more than the underlying asset. This is the Church's monetary insight, secularized. Currency credibility maintenance, the management of collective belief in the value of a symbolic medium, was the Church's most sophisticated institutional achievement. The Church maintained the credibility of its monetary authority, not through commodity backing, but through the institutional authority that centuries of religious, legal, and social embeddedness had produced. Contemporary central banks maintain currency credibility through the same mechanism. Institutional authority embedded in legal frameworks, international agreements, and the social infrastructure of modern economic life. The pattern does not stop there. Cross-geographic value transfer, the ability to move symbolic value across geographic boundaries through institutional guarantee, was the Templars' specific innovation and the function that made the subsequent development of international finance possible. The swift interbank messaging system, correspondent banking relationships, and the dollar's role as the global reserve currency all reproduce this function at modern scale. The institutional logic is identical. A single trusted institution whose guarantee enables value transfer across geographic and jurisdictional boundaries without physical commodity transport. If this investigation is worth continuing, signal it. The algorithm reads that as a vote for independent analysis. Here is the applicable lens. The central bank's authority over your money is not a modern invention. It is a secularized version of an authority relationship that the medieval Catholic Church maintained over European monetary life for 1500 years. And that was transmitted to secular financial institutions through a documented professional lineage that most people who use money daily have never been told about. This is not a conspiracy. It is an institutional history. The story of how an authority relationship that worked was transmitted from one institutional context to another without fundamental structural change, because the underlying challenge it addressed remained constant. The challenge has not changed. Sustaining collective belief in the value of a symbolic medium requires an institution trusted enough that its guarantee is worth more than the underlying asset. The medieval Church solved this. Its solution was transmitted to secular financial institutions. Those institutions are managing your money on the basis of a design that was developed to manage the Church's monetary authority. Ask the next time you interact with any financial institution, what is the basis of this institution's authority to guarantee the value of the symbolic medium it manages? Not its legal charter. That is the contemporary equivalent of papal authorization. Not its reserve holdings. That is the contemporary equivalent of canonical reserve requirements. The basis of its authority is the collective belief in its authority, maintained by its embeddedness in the legal, social, and institutional infrastructure of modern economic life. That embeddedness is the Church's institutional inheritance, secularized and transmitted through 600 years of continuous professional lineage. The next layer of this investigation goes deeper into how the specific doctrinal disputes about monetary authority that split the medieval Church, the usury debates, the theological arguments about the nature of symbolic value, the canonical arguments about reserve requirements, were reproduced in secularized form in the monetary policy debates of the 20th century, including the Keynesian monetarist debate and the contemporary debate about central bank independence. Subscribe to follow the analysis. The question is not whether central banks were invented in the 20th century. Martin's institutional continuity thesis, the Templar lineage documentation, and the structural analysis of the Basel Accords all confirm that they were not. The question is what institution taught the people who built modern finance how money actually works, and whether the lesson has changed.